Good morning. Welcome back. If you have been following me on my crusade through the Bible, I'm starting in of course, the book of Genesis. Today I'm going to be reading chapters, I want to say 40 and 41. 40 and 41. How many chapters is Genesis? Let's just take a quick look. 50. 50. So, I'm honestly not that far off. I'm almost done with the book of Genesis. That is very exciting, honestly. When I get done with the book of Genesis, excuse me, what I would love to do is kind of have a recap of all my thoughts and feelings and opinions and just to revitalize myself on all the things that I've already covered and refresh myself on all those things. Before I move into the next book, which is Exodus. So, I'm almost done with Genesis. Yay. Let's move on. Chapter 40. It's called The Cupbearer and the Baker. So, again, got a dog hair in my mouth. Any crazy names I'm going to butcher. Just so you know, you're ready. Prepare to have your ears be offended. So, the cupbearer and the baker. It says, sometime later, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt offered their master, the king of Egypt. No, I read that wrong. Offended their master, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was angry with his two officials, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard in the same prison where Joseph was confined. So just kind of recap yesterday. Over the course of this, Joseph said he had a dream where stars, the sun, the moon all bowed to him. His siblings took that as, is he saying that we're going to bow to him, that we're going to be subservient to him? So they plotted to kill him, although I want to say it was maybe Reuben that was just like, nah, don't kill him, just throw him in this, this ditch. They were going to do that. Then they decided to sell him to some Ishmaelites. And then eventually he made his way to Egypt and he was sold into the custody of the captain or some kind of official to the Pharaoh. That guy ended up really, really trusting Joseph for all the work that he had done. And, his wife, that guy's wife ended up coming on to Joseph. Joseph was like, nah. She framed him. He got thrown in prison. That's kind of where we're at right now. So that's kind of the recap on what's going on here. And it looks like this cupbearer and the baker just also were thrown in the same prison that Joseph said. So after they had been in custody for some time, each of the two men, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were being held prison, had a dream the same night, and each dream they had a meaning of its own. So I've said this before, but dreams don't do anything for me. God hasn't given me any dreams, so I don't know. Continue on. It says when Joseph came in the next morning, he saw that they were dejected. So he asked Pharaoh's officials who were in custody with him in his master's house, "Why do you look so sad today?" "We both had dreams," they answered, "but there is no one to interpret them." So Joseph said to them, Do not interpretations belong to God? Do not interpretations belong to God? That's a weird way to say that. "Tell me your dreams." So the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream. He said to him, "In my dream I saw a vine in front of me. On the vine there were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, it blossomed, and there was a clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup, and put the cup in his hands." Okay. So, odd dream, I guess you could say, but if you're a cupbearer, you're used to providing this to the Pharaoh, you would assume that a lot of your dreams would kind of circle back to that concept. Because for me personally, I grew up in a children's home at a certain juncture of my life, and I tend to have a lot of dreams about that children's home, right? Even events that don't necessarily coincide with the children's home. Like, it'll be things that have nothing to do with it, and then I'll dream it, but it'll be in that place. And same thing for work. I always have dreams that I've gone into work and started my days just to wake up and be terribly, terribly wrong that I really do have to go in and start my day. So, I don't know. Let's continue on. It says, this is what it means. Joseph said to him, the 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your position, and you will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand, just as you used to do when you were his cupbearer. But when all goes well with you, remember me and show your kindness. Mention me to Pharaoh and get me out of this prison. I was forcibly carried off from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I have done nothing to deserve being put in a dungeon. When the chief baker saw that Joseph had given a favorable interpretation, he said to Joseph, I too had a dream. On my head there were 3 baskets of bread. In the top basket were all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating them out of the basket of my head. So let's read on, and I'll talk about this. It said, this is what it means. 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift your head and impale your body on a pole, and the birds will eat away your flesh. Holy crap. Imagine being that guy. You just told the cupbearer, hey bro, you're going to get your position back. The Pharaoh's going to take you back into his good grace. Just remember me, dog. Just remember me. And then other dude's like, oh, hell yeah. So what about my dream? Oh, you're going to be killed. That's some crazy stuff. Let's continue on. Now the 3rd day was Pharaoh's birthday, and he gave a feast for all his officials. He lifted up the heads of the chief cupbearer and the chief baker in the presence of his officials. He restored the chief cupbearer to his position, so that he once again put the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he impaled the chief baker, just as Joseph had said to them in his interpretation. The chief cupbearer, however, did not remember Joseph. He forgot him. So, this is one of those situations where it really is word of mouth. And what I mean by that is, who is to say that Joseph interpreted the dreams before or after the 3 days had passed, Pharaoh's birthday, and the events unfolded? Who's to say that? And I know it says, well, chronologically, we see this is the case, right? That Joseph interpreted the dreams, and then the dreams unfolded as he interpreted them. But I distinctly remember that there was a part of the Bible where, or a part of Genesis where, what's her name? I can't remember what her name is at the moment, but she was Abraham's wife's servant who he raped, had his son Ishmael with. They cast Ishmael and his wife and his mother out after they have their son. Is it Isaac? Yeah, Isaac. They have their son Isaac. So they cast Ishmael out and his mom, and she makes it to some kind of well. Well, then the next passage kind of goes back in time and tells us how that well was made and then how it got its name. And I know that's not necessarily what's going on here, but ever since that chapter or that sequence of events, I've really questioned the order of events. So, again, who is to say that these 3 events didn't happen? Joseph heard them talking about their dream. After this had happened, he says, oh, this is what their dreams must have meant. Only Joseph can attest to that, honestly, right? So, I don't know. I wanted to just bring that up for, honesty purposes, I guess you could say, because I'm not completely bought in. So, let's go ahead and move on to Pharaoh's dreams, chapter 41. And this is a very, very long one, so I'll have to cut it here today. I was going to hope to get through 42. I'm ready to get through with this thing. To get through at least Genesis. It says, Pharaoh's dream. When 2 full years had passed, Pharaoh had a dream. He was standing by the Nile, went out of the river. Standing by the Nile, went out of the river. There came up 7 crows, sleek and fat, and they grazed among the reeds. And reeds meaning, what do we got here? Well, it doesn't say. After them, 7 other cows, ugly and gaunt, came up out of the Nile and stood beside those on the riverbank. And the cows that were ugly and gaunt ate up the 7 sleek, fat cows. Then Pharaoh woke up. He fell asleep again and had a second dream. 7 heads of grain, healthy and good, were growing on a single stalk. After them, 7 other heads of grain sprouted, thin and scorched by the east wind. The thin heads of grain swallowed up the 7 healthy, full heads. Then Pharaoh woke up. It had been a dream. In the morning, his mind was troubled, so he sent for all the magicians and wise men of Egypt. Pharaoh told them of his dream, but no one could interpret them for him. Then the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, "Today I am reminded of my shortcomings. Pharaoh was once angry with his servants, and he imprisoned me and the chief baker in the house of the captain of the guard. Each of us had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. Now a young Hebrew was there with us, a servant of the captain of the guard. We told him our dreams, and he interpreted them for us, giving each man the interpretation of his dreams. And things turned out exactly as he interpreted them to us. I was restored to my position, and the other man was impaled." So there we are, clarifying my suspicion from earlier, so I can admit that I was wrong. So this is more sequential, not taken out of order or out of context. So they got me there. I'll admit that. But I'm very mindful. Since that happened, it made me think, is there other areas where this has happened? So I just wanted to be as transparent as possible. So Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and he was quickly brought to the dungeon. When he had shaved and changed his clothes, he came before Pharaoh. You know what's weird is I was imagining, for some reason, Joseph as a boy in my head when I'm picturing this guy. I forgot this guy's a grown man, a full-grown man. He's shaving now, so he's had to have some kind of beard. So my mental image is way off. So Pharaoh sent for Joseph. I already read that one. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I had a dream, and no one can interpret it. But I've heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it." "I cannot do it," Joseph replied to Pharaoh, "but God will give Pharaoh the answers he desires." Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "In my dream, I was standing on the bank of the Nile. When out of the river, there came up 7 cows, fat and sleek, and they grazed among the reeds. After them, 7 other cows came up, scrawny and very ugly and lean. I had never seen such ugly cows in all the land of Egypt. The lean, ugly cows ate up the 7 fat cows that came up first. But even after they ate them, no one could tell that they had done so. They looked just as ugly as before. Then I woke up. In my dream, I saw 7 heads of grain, full and good, growing on a single stalk. After them, 7 other heads sprouted, withered and thin, and scorched by the east wind. The thin heads of the grain swallowed up the 7 good heads. I told this to the magicians, but none of them could explain it to me." Which is crazy, right? Think about that for a second. Think about that. This man has magicians. Okay? So this man has magicians. So I'm not going to get into that. I'll save that for the story of Moses. We'll get into that for the story of Moses. Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, "The dreams of Pharaoh are one and the same." So they're the same dream, of course. That makes sense. They're literally played out essentially the exact same. "The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good heads of grain are 7 years. It is one and the same dream. The 7 lean, ugly cows that came up after are 7 years, and so are the 7 worthless heads of grain scorched by the east wind. They are 7 years of famine. It is just as I said to Pharaoh. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do." So here's another spot where he, for God, isn't capitalized. So I've noticed that in a few different spots. So that's just interesting for me. That kind of flips. And it could be just, a translation error, right? I can chalk that up to simple translation errors where human beings, we get things wrong. So, blah, 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 where was I? 7 years of great abundance are coming to the land of Egypt, but 7 years of famine will follow them. Then all the abundance in Egypt will be forgotten, and the famine will ravage the land. The abundance in the land will not be remembered because the famine that follows it will be so severe. The reason the dream was given to Pharaoh in two forms is that the matter has been firmly decided by God, and God will do it soon. And now let Pharaoh look for a discerning and wise man and put him in charge of the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh appoint the commissioners over the land and take a fifth of harvest of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. They should collect all the food for these good years that are coming and store up the grain under the authority of Pharaoh to be kept in the cities for food. This food should be held in reserve for the country to be used during the 7 years of famine that will come upon Egypt, so that the country may not be ruined by the famine. The plan seemed good to Pharaoh and to all of his officials, so Pharaoh asked them, "Can we find anyone like this man, one in whom is the Spirit of God?" Wow, that is a weird way to say that. Again, it's an old dialogue, so it throws me off a little bit. The Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Since God has made all this known to you, there's no one so discerning and wise as you. You shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people are to submit to your orders. Only with respect to the throne I will be greater than you." So Joseph in charge of Egypt. This is still part of chapter 41. My goodness, this is a long one. And I got to get ready for work here soon. So I'm going to try to move a little bit faster. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I hereby put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt." Then Pharaoh took take his signet ring from his finger and put it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in robes of fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck. He had him ride in a chariot as his second in command, and people shouted before him, "Make way!" Thus he put him in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I am Pharaoh, but with your word no one will lift hand or foot in all Egypt." Pharaoh gave Joseph the name Zaphanath. Let me try that again. Zaphanath Paneah, and gave him Asenath, daughter of Potiphera, priest of On, to be his wife. Goodness sake! Again, them names. And Joseph went throughout the land of Egypt. Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. So right there, 30 years old. We're about the same age. He's a little younger than me. That's interesting. I could be wrong, but didn't Jesus start his ministry at 30 and died at 33? Or did he start his ministry at 33? And I might be wrong. Don't quote me there. I'm not sure. And Joseph went out from Pharaoh's presence and traveled throughout Egypt. During the 7 years of abundance, the land produced plentifully. Joseph collected all the food produced in those 7 years of abundance in Egypt and stored it in the cities. In each city, he put the food grown in the fields surrounding it. Joseph stored up huge quantities of grain, like the sand on the beach. It was so much that he had stopped keeping records because it was beyond measure. Before the years of the famine came, 2 sons were born to Joseph by Asenath, daughter of Potiphera, priest of On. Joseph named his firstborn Manasseh and said, "It is because God has made me forget all my troubles and all my father's household." The second son he named Ephraim and said, "It is because God has made me fruitful in the land of my suffering." In the years of abundance in Egypt, the 7 years of abundance in Egypt came to an end, and the 7 years of famine began, just as Joseph had said. There was famine in all other lands, but the whole land of Egypt there was food. When all Egypt began to feel famine, the people cried to Pharaoh for food. The Pharaoh told all the Egyptians, "Go to Joseph and do what he tells you." When the famine had spread over the whole country, Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold grain to Egyptians, for the famine was severe throughout Egypt. And all the world came to Egypt to buy grain from Joseph because the famine was severe everywhere. So I'm going to stop right there. That ends chapter 41. So Joseph's redemption. He's climbed back up the economic tower, the social, political, and economic, like I said, ladder. He's at the top there with Pharaoh, outside of Pharaoh himself. It's great to see him bounce back. I know that his brothers are coming because that's literally the next chapter said something about his brothers. So I'm excited about that. I'm ready for them to face him and see that, look what I've become. Essentially, look what I've become. And we know that everywhere else is being hit by this famine. So they're going to really have to ask their brother for some kind of forgiveness. Maybe they don't even recognize him, right? It's been years at this point. So let's go ahead and call it there. I hope you all have a blessed day. And I'll be back for tomorrow.